And on the outset, I want to acknowledge the announcement of my friends and colleagues, Catherine Murphy and Roisin Shortall, that they aren't contesting the next general election. Catherine and Roisin are trailblazers in Irish politics and have accomplished an incredible amount in careers that spanned decades of committed political work and dedicated public service, not least of which was setting up the Social Democrats and helping to grow the party to where it is today with 6 TDs and 35 councillors. Catherine and Roisin are stepping back from frontline politics, but they leave behind a legacy, a party with strong roots, huge potential and enormous promise. On a personal level, it's hard to articulate. I think the impact they've had on me, I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for them, and I want to thank them for their support. And on behalf of the party, I want to thank them for all of their hard work and congratulate them on their incredible careers. Taoiseach, what we're witnessing in Gaza is beyond horror. It's the stuff of unrelenting nightmares. For 9 months, the Israeli army has bombed, maimed and tortured a starved and captive population. Their aim isn't self-defence, it's annihilation. According to a report from Save the Children, more than 14,000 children in Gaza have been killed and 21,000 children are missing. The report said children are also among those found in mass graves recently, with many showing signs of torture. This is the reality of the Israeli government's barbarity and cruelty. Gaza is now a graveyard for children, and still the slaughter continues in the full glare of the media spotlight. The publicity doesn't make a difference. Most Western governments have lost interest in even pretending to care. It seems that all you need to do to get away with genocide is to continue the relentless killing until the genocide becomes normalised. Taoiseach, the government has talked tough on this issue, but what have you really done to apply meaningful pressure on Israel to stop this massacre? Trade with Israel is continuing. The Israeli ambassador is still in situ, and travel visas for those committing atrocities in the occupied territories are still facilitated. The genocide continues, but it's business as usual with the Israeli government. Your office sent me on a brief note explaining why the government refuses to enact the Occupied Territories Bill. It says the government has disavowed the bill for, quote, legal, political and practical reasons. I and many others don't agree with the legal reasons, but I have to say I find it troubling and offensive that the political and practical reasons would be cited as a stumbling block to action. We're talking about 100,000 people who have been either killed, injured or are missing. Yet the government's too concerned with politics and practicalities to take action outside of the welcome recognition of the State of Palestine. Taoiseach, I've asked this question a lot of times, but I'll keep doing it until we see action from the government. What are you going to do to apply meaningful pressure on Israel? Why won't you take the unilateral action like enacting the Occupied Territories Bill? And can you tell me when that updated legal advice on the Occupied Territories Bill was received? Because a lot of people believe that it should change in light of the ongoing genocide.
Taoiseach, please.
So on becoming Taoiseach, Deputy Cairns, I asked again in relation to the legality of the Occupied Territories Bill, and the same position has been reiterated to me as has been reiterated to my predecessors, and indeed the same position has been reiterated to me by the Attorney General that would have been reiterated by his predecessors as well. I fully accept your bona fides and that this is a point of difference, but the very clear legal advice to me, which would be the same as the legal advice available to you, I believe, if you were in my position, is that the bill is not compatible because these matters are dealt with at a European level. What I can tell you, and what I absolutely can tell you, is that Ireland continues to push at a European level to change policy in relation to the association agreement between the EU and Israel, because I do share your view, I do strongly share your view, that it can't be business as usual in relation to that association agreement. I share that view, Spain shares that view, Belgium somewhat shared that view recently, but it still remains a minority view amongst member states of the European Union. And that is frustrating to say, but it is a truthful portrayal that I can give you from my engagement at the European Council as recently as last week. Ireland did make amendments to the conclusions of the European Council last week, specifically around the International Court of Justice and the very clear orders of that court, particularly in May in relation to Rafah, and significantly strengthened the language of the European Union's conclusions in relation to that also. We've repeatedly called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, and we are continuing to work at every opportunity with partners in the region, in the Middle East, including the King of Jordan, whom I've spoken to, and in the EU, to build momentum for peace efforts. I specifically discussed the issue with President Biden as well. But I do now fear that there's going to be that the actual stability of the Palestinian Authority is now an additional cause of concern. And I'm already working at an EU level, and I've already spoken to the President of the European Commission twice about this issue in the last week, as to what role the European Union can play in stabilising financially the position of the Palestinian Authority, which is absolutely key, I believe, to protecting the state of Palestine and ensuring that there is a state of Palestine, to engage with the two-state solution. That's absolutely essential. So I'm aware of the horrific situation. I'm haunted by it, as I know are people right across this country. But Ireland continues to use its voice at every single opportunity, in every single international fora. We don't just say things, we vote that way internationally. We don't just say things, we amend conclusions that way. We don't just say things, we provide extra humanitarian assistance, we stand by UNRWA, and we will continue to look for every opportunity. And at a European level, Europe is not where it needs to be.
Taoiseach, Deputy Cairns.
Every day in Gaza brings a new atrocity, and today isn't any different. The hospital in Khan Yunis has been basically evacuated. So this morning the World Health Organization issued a plea to the Israeli government. So now we have powerful organizations basically just pleading with the Israeli government to not commit war crimes. I don't know how much longer we have to sit back and watch that kind of savagery continue, and not just refuse to take action, but actually reward those who've facilitated it. So you say you agree with much of what I said, and that you're aware and that you're haunted by it. But incredibly, the Irish government is supporting Ursula von der Leyen as the next European Commission President. Fine Gael at least were honest about their intentions in advance of the election, but honesty isn't a word that can credibly be attached to the position of Fianna Fáil on this issue. Von der Leyen and the EU institution don't care about the massacre of Palestinians. That's the reality. And while the Irish government professes outrage and solidarity with Palestinians, you're simultaneously supporting von der Leyen and therefore trade with Israel. And that has actually increased since this started. Taoiseach, can you explain how that adds up? How are you using every available opportunity, as you just said, when you support her for a second term?
Taoiseach, please.
Because her position is entirely misrepresented. And if you were at the European Council, as I was last week, no, hang on, I was the only Irish person in the room, so maybe allow me the courtesy of telling the Irish Dáil what happened. So when I was there last week, every single Prime Minister and President, bar one, the Hungarian, supported, or indeed in the case of Italy, abstained. Every other single person supported, including socialist governments. In fact, the Prime Minister of Spain, who's probably seen as an extraordinarily strong supporter of Palestine, supported President von der Leyen. So this attempt in Ireland to characterise the inertia at an international level in relation to the Middle East around one individual is misplaced. It's Ursula von der Leyen who significantly increased the UNRWA aid budget, and it's her who right now is working on financial packages of support for the Palestinian Authority. So she has been somewhat successfully, though there I'm not sure how successful it was actually when you look at the outcome of elections across Europe, but there was an effort to create her as some sort of bogey woman. It doesn't tally at all with the actions that she's taking. And the fact that socialist prime ministers, centrist prime ministers, presidents supported Ursula von der Leyen after an election of 180 million citizens speaks very clearly to her credentials.
Deputy McBarry, please.